towards the end of last year, we touched a lot on gender-based violence in working on fire. And I understand this has been an ongoing discussion amongst us, management and participants. So I want to understand, what is it all about?
Yeah. Look, as we say, with the 16 days of non-violence against women and children, we did ramp up our program. But as you'd have seen, many are arguing that this should not be a 16-day affair, right? It's a scourge that affects our society in a very, very serious manner. And it's a scourge that does come into working on fire from time to time. So we are committed to stamping out gender-based violence in this organization. And we are not going to simply wait for 16 days of non-violence against women and children. We are going to make it a 365-day campaign and constantly reinforce the message that abuse against women and children is not acceptable. Now, obviously, we hope that this initiative will lead to this kind of scourge not playing out in working on fire. We also hope that this kind of constant reinforcement of the message will also go into our firefighters, our managements, homes, families, and their lives outside of working on fire, so that we can also contribute to the efforts to eradicate gender-based violence in our society. We, of course, obviously are the product of society, and there are instances where it has, in fact, reared its head. Where it does, we will take firm action. We will ensure that such type of behavior is not tolerated within working on fire.
Okay. Following news in around South Africa, there's been cases whereby people tend to lie about these issues of gender-based violence and sexual harassment in workplaces. In case that happens in working on fire, how do you intend on dealing with such?
Yeah. We have a disciplinary code, and we will be, in fact, using that code to address it. Now, I think it's very important that we emphasize our disciplinary code in the first instance is there to protect our employees and to protect the organization from behavior that's unacceptable. And clearly, sexual harassment, gender-based violence is something that we will not accept. But I think we need to convey a message also to the organization. Our disciplinary code is not there to victimize anyone. It's one that's going to be based on an objective process. So where we have a complaint, be it gender-based violence complaint, sexual harassment, any other misconduct, our first station is going to be to do a proper investigation. And once we've got the results of that investigation, we'll be able to decide whether there's basis for, in fact, proceeding with a disciplinary action or not. I think it's important for us to reiterate that disciplinary policies, disciplinary procedures in an organization is there to protect people. It's there to identify behavior which is unacceptable. It's also there with a corrective intent. Right? So the sanctions and the outcome of processes is there that weighs up the evidence in terms of the misconduct and ought to be corrective. Of course, there's some serious offenses where, unfortunately, we need to come to a conclusion that this person should not be in the organization. And that will lead to dismissal. But then again, our disciplinary code clearly allows for appeal. Our labor laws clearly allow for us to go to CCMA. So we want to assure that discipline will not be used to victimize people. Discipline should be an objective process of evaluating whether or not an employee committed a misconduct.
I understand this issue of gender-based violence has become more of a national anthem for us as Working on Fire, for us as Working on Fire brand. So my question is there any platform whereby our employees can access those regulations and consequences if they are to find out?
We are just busy circulating our revised disciplinary code, our policies and our procedures, which we hope to have in effect as of 1st of April 2020. And that will clearly set out how we approach issues of misconduct, including gender-based violence. I do, however, want to reiterate, gender-based violence in itself doesn't require a rule. It is an abuse of another person's dignity. It's one that we should all be talking about, the respect we need to have for each other, particularly across gender. So, people often ask, what's sexual harassment, gender-based violence. We are going to be having a number of programs with our social development team, which will be reiterating what is the unacceptable behavior. However, I must say, I've seen many plays by our firefighters, and to my mind, I've got no doubt they understand very well what is the unacceptability about sexual harassment, what constitutes sexual harassment, what constitutes gender-based violence. But we will reinforce that through our social development program.